today at Mother's Market in Costa Mesa. That's what I'm going to start with. The reason that we're here in this location, first and foremost, is that the city of Costa Mesa decided to pass, I won't even say an ordinance, because it's not an ordinance, it's not a law. An order came down from the city council, from the mayor's office, and then the police, of course, have to unfortunately be put in a position to be the mask police once something like this happens. I'm sure that's not a high priority for them. But Costa Mesa then boasted about this new law that they passed, putting out a big ad in Facebook, letting the world know that if you walk out of your house without a mask on and you're in public, you could be subject to a $100 fine. So, of course, that got our attention, because that kind of tyrannical behavior, that kind of tyrannical government that's been going on now since mid-March when the lockdown occurred, we've had enough of it. We're completely over it. And what we're noticing, that was a nice happy cheer you gave him there. That's the way to do it. Fight anger with love. Right? That's how we do it. So Costa Mesa decided to double down on all of this tyranny that's going on out there, up and down the state, up and down the coast, Oregon, Washington, California. You go to the other side there, New York, Connecticut, New Jersey. You got these states that are actually working together right now to keep the economy down, to keep us down. And it's about a political, this is the first weaponized virus, politically weaponized virus in the history of mankind. We know this. Masking is just a part of that. So we're here at Mother's Market also because Mother's Markets, and it's ironic that these health food stores are the most aggressive in attacking customers that walk in without a mask. We walk in without a mask because we know how to stay healthy. We stay healthy by allowing our immune system to do its work. We stay healthy by eating healthy, not by wearing a petri dish over our mouth and our nose and inhaling bacteria, inhaling and rebreathing our own CO2. It's so unhealthy. There's so much science and evidence out there that tells everybody, if you just look for it and quit listening to Fauci, even though Fauci said in March 8th in a 60 Minutes interview, I'm looking at it, there's no reason to be walking around with a mask. And if you remember what Fauci said, he went back and forth, and he said, you know, the reason that I lied to you when I said not to wear a mask is so that there wouldn't be a rush on masks and PPE, and our health professionals wouldn't be without a mask. So he was willing to risk the lives of potentially millions of Americans, infect millions of Americans, in the interest of this lie to protect the PPE and the masks. Doesn't make any sense, does it? The fact that he even admitted that is insane.
Exactly. Now,
there's going to be speakers up here that are going to speak at greater length about the mask than I am. I'm not here to speak about the science of masks. What I'm here, my message is today, for those of you that know, I spent 24 years in law enforcement, retired as a police chief. I started my career with the Orange County Sheriff's Department and spent the majority of my career in the city of Fontana out in the IE, 20 years there. And I really wanted to deliver a message to my brothers and sisters in blue and green and tan that work across not only the city of Costa Mesa, but the entire country. And we are living in a lawless society right now, with random laws being enforced and made, and especially as a result of this so-called health emergency. But we have Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama still running around free. When you look at Obamagate and you look at the myriad crimes that Hillary Clinton has committed, felony after felony after felony, and yet nothing. But we see across the country, I remember in March watching 3 police officers in Philadelphia pull an African-American man in a business suit, drag him off of a bus because he was not wearing a mask. Right? I mean, you would think to yourself, just a few months ago, you would think, there's no way that could happen in my country. Yet it has. So my message really today is about the lawlessness of our society today in this bizarre place that we find ourselves in, and law enforcement's reaction to it, and the reaction that they need to have, that they really need to think about. Because we go from this lawlessness at the federal level to then Gavin Newsom, the criminal, in Sacramento. And every time I speak, I refer to Gavin Newsom as a criminal, not a governor. And the reason that I call him a criminal is because just like we're talking about here, I know what's going on out there. You know what's going on out there. And trust me, Gavin Newsom knows what's going on out there. And he is on the other team using this virus as a weapon for political power. And when he does that, he knows that people are dying out here. Yep. We have millions unemployed. We have people committing suicide out of depression, spiraling down into drug and alcohol addiction, children being abused in the home because they can't go to school, and those bruises and scars can't be seen by somebody who would report it to Child Protective Services or some authority who would intervene. So all these things are happening. People are dying. And I spoke in Sacramento a while back, and I asked the crowd, I want you to think about this. Back in my police days, when I was a detective working a homicide case, we would put pieces of a puzzle together. And we came to that conclusion that, yes, this person acted with intent and malice aforethought, and his action led to this person's death. You know what we called that? Murder. Exactly. And that's why I always repeatedly call Gavin Newsom a criminal whenever I speak about him.
Good.
Now, we are starting to see some light at the end of the tunnel. We are. I'm going to tell you about it. Thank you. Did all of you hear about that brave sheriff of Marion County in Florida? Give him a big hand. For those of you that don't know, as far as I know, he was the first law enforcement executive in the country to not only make masks optional for his employees and for people coming into his station, he is forbidding the wearing of masks by his deputies or by anybody coming into their station to visit.
Awesome.
Now, as a former law enforcement professional, that makes sense. And here's another reason. For those of you that haven't heard this statistic, the city of Santa Ana has had a 50% increase in their robberies since masking became mandated. You hear a lot of talk about child trafficking going on out there, and human trafficking and sexual slavery and things of this nature. You think that's harder or easier when you can mask everybody up? When you start, exactly, much easier. If you can throw masks on children, it makes it much easier to hide their identity and drag them away. So we're doing this for a lot of reasons. Now I would also ask, as I mentioned that story about the sheriff in Florida, well, we have an elected sheriff here, Sheriff Barnes. So I hope Sheriff Barnes is looking across to the other coast over there and thinking to himself, that took guts, and it's the right thing to do. And then do the same thing. Costa Mesa has a police chief, Chief Glass. He is appointed by a city council. He's under a little more pressure because he's not elected. They can kick him out of his position anytime they want. But so what? Sometimes it's necessary to say, I'm going to do the right thing, and then you do what you got to do, council, but I and my men and women are not your masked police. And then go on from there. I want to read you something today before I wrap up. And I'm going to encourage, again, law enforcement across the country, please heed these messages that I'm about to share with you, because I'm going to remind you of something that you stated, whether it was last week as a brand new officer or 30 years ago when you first came into the profession. I want to read you the opening paragraph of the Law Enforcement Code of Ethics. And this is something that, it's about 6-7 paragraphs long, and every single police officer in this country going through the basic academy memorizes this code of ethics before they graduate. And I want to read you the opening paragraph. It goes like this. As a law enforcement officer, my fundamental duty is to serve mankind, to safeguard lives and property, to protect the innocent against deception, the weak against oppression or intimidation, and the peaceful against violence or disorder, and to respect the constitutional rights of all to liberty, equality, and justice. That's the opening paragraph. That's where they really want the officer to focus on that. That's what starts the code of ethics. I'll read that last again. And to respect the constitutional rights of all to liberty, equality, and justice. Yes. The next thing I'm going to read to you is the same oath that I took when I went into the Army back in 1982. And then the oath I took a few more times in my law enforcement career when I went into the academy, and I went to a few different police departments. Each time I went there, I had to take that same oath. And it should be noted Not just military and law enforcement take this oath. All elected officials across the country also take this oath, including the Costa Mesa City Council. I'm going to read this to you. This is the oath. I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, both foreign and domestic. And that's where we are today, folks, fighting domestic enemies. That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same. That I take this obligation freely, without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion. And that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties of the office on which I am about to enter, so help me God. Now imagine any city council across this country taking that oath and then taking some of the actions that we're seeing taken across the country right now. So I shout out to everybody, every police officer, every soldier, airman, Marine, Navy person, every cop, every elected official across this country. It's time to wake up. It's time to lead your people out of this mess and obey and live up to your oath.
Yes.
With that, I'm going to turn this microphone over to a woman that needs no introduction. I'm going to tell you a little bit about her. I'm going to ask Lee Dumbus to come up here and speak. Lee is a human rights attorney, and she has been fighting this war from day one.